Oh, greetings. I'm Boris Johnson, and we are back in the kitchen today because we're going to be learning how to make a woke loaf. Okay, a woke loaf. I'm wearing shorts, but you can't see that. For today's recipe, we're going to need a loaf tin, small loaf tin, a wooden spoon, a mixing bowl, and an ardent hatred for differing opinions. We're going to start off by adding 225 grams of invented pronouns. Okay, get those invented pronouns in there, and you give them a good whisk around until they're nice and fluffy, and they make no sense whatsoever. So when they make no sense whatsoever, and you can actually see a Z and a zer, and they appear to be acceptable pronouns, that's when we need to add 225 grams of intolerance. I've gone for a muscovado intolerance because it gives a nice, rich and deep intolerant taste. But you know, some do insist that caster intolerance is supreme. But if we're being honest, they're just white supremacists. Now, you want to crush that around, mix that in and crush it around until it starts to sound like you're walking down a pea shingle driveway. Yes, that's it. Nice and crunchy. That's what you want. Absolutely. Very important. That's very important. Crunch it around until it sounds like you're walking down a pea shingle driveway. Get it all in there, of course. Now, keep going until you've got a proper safe space for bizarre pronouns. One which is fortressed by a saccharine intolerance. Yes. Now the next step is to disturb that safe space, but don't worry, only for a brief moment, to make it more flexible and absorbent to, logical criticisms, for instance. And we do so by adding 3 trigger warnings. Okay, 1 trigger warning, it'll be 2 trigger warnings, 2 trigger warnings, and of course, 3 trigger warnings, 3 trigger warnings. Now you beat those trigger warnings in. And now we have a bizarre pronoun, ravaged intolerance, that becomes triggered, even if you criticize it just a little bit. And if you think at this stage that your batter, that your mix would still be able to handle constructive criticism, then bin it, okay? At this stage, no point in going on. It will never be properly woke. Now, when perfectly soppy and spineless when it comes to handling criticism, now we need to strengthen and sturdy the mix up by adding 225 grams of moral righteousness. Now, remember, when you get moral righteousness, make sure you get the unearned variety, or once again, it won't be woke. Stir that in. Now, fold that in right through the corporations and all the institutions until the unearned moral righteousness, immune to critique, of course, now because of the trigger warnings, has completely consumed the once batter-like mix of intolerance about pronouns. Now that's given it some backbone, yes, some backbone, some structure, it's given it some self-belief, and now it's more absorbent to the blows of logic. Look, just sucks them up nice and proper. There's no way you're going to disturb this anymore with logic. Because even though it's still subtle enough to absorb the logical blows, the moral righteousness, unearned, has made sure that you can now, it has a military-like order, military-like order and organization. And that makes it far more dangerously delicious. Right, at this stage, you can put it into your loaf tin and bake it for, well, I don't actually know, so just use your intuition if need be. Anyway, when you're done, you'll probably have something that looks like this, a perfectly baked woke loaf. Now, I like to decorate mine with genders, because there's hundreds and thousands of those. Okay, and there we are, perfectly woke loaf, ready to eat and destroy society from within. Okay, so I've been Boris Johnson. Please join me again in the kitchen another time. Take good care of yourselves. Hello and welcome. As you can see, we're in the kitchen today and we're going to be knocking up a simple tyranny cake. So for this, you're going to need a mixing bowl and wooden spoon, And to start off, we're going to add 225 grams of fear. Now, stone cold terror is delicious, but you do actually want this room temperature so you can give it a good mix around with a whisk. So you're going to be whisking it around there and give it a good mix. And only when mix it round evenly and consistently for the whole of society. And only when the faces of the people go white with terror do you need to add 225 grams of sweet propaganda. Now, once you've got that in there, give that a good beat round. You can probably hear that now, can't you? It's crisp, it's precise, it's addictive. And you mix that propaganda deep into the fear that's already been laid throughout the whole society. And it should crunch and grind a little bit like seeds being digested in the belly of a parakeet. Anyway, keep carrying on going back and see. Yes. Fear and propaganda. Great mix they are. Now, as you can see, you've got fear and propaganda there. Now, when the fear and propaganda make a delicious synergy of delusion, that's when we need to beat the structure out of it with 4 lockdowns. Now, always add 1 lockdown at a time. Beat the lockdown in mercilessly. And as you can see, you start to beat the structure out of society completely. Yes, there we are. Another lockdown. Just as the society starts to cope with propaganda and the fear. There we are. The lockdowns are beaten in 1 at a time. I've added 2 so far. We'll add 2 more, but 1 at a time, like I said. Another lockdown, just as the getting used to being free. With a good lockdown now. Those lockdowns will really work with the fear that we've already laid through society and the sweet propaganda. That's going to be all semblance of structure out here. You'll be like putty. Absolute putty. Good. Right, 1 more lockdown. Just when you thought you couldn't take it. There we are, just in case you had a bit of will to survive there. I'm going to get rid of that. Now, that's it. So, you can see we've got a putty mess here. All the previous structure of society has been completely ruined, and we now have a heavily beaten, frightened, and easily controlled society. So you now need to add new structure. 225 grams of coercion. Now, I've gone for coercion with an added threat and corruption. You can just use the normal stuff. You can get it anywhere. It's pretty simple to get. And when you get it in, you've got to be very, very careful. Mix the coercion in slowly, gently. Stir it in so no one notices. Okay? Now, yeah, that's it. I'm going all out of this. Yes, now, there we are. New structure now being formed in society without them having any knowledge of it. No one notices this happening. That's perfect. Keep turning it gently. Keep turning it out. See? Starting to take new shape in the within the image of the inventor, which is me in this case. So keep doing that. Keep doing that. Now, at this point is where we're going to add a few Gestapo members. So we've got Sven here, Sven, and Jürgen, and they're going to go in. They will keep an eye on society to make sure the new structure is being absorbed properly. And yes, just stir them in. Anyway, of course, I've got time to bake it, so when that's done, we'll have something like this. A beautiful tyranny cake, which I personally decided to ice with the tears of loved ones who couldn't see their other loved ones. Very tasty, very sweet. Okay, that's it really. That is the tyranny cake, perfectly made. The problem is, when you give in to eating this tyranny cake, you'll literally be eating it night and day. It will literally take over your life. So be careful. Join me again next week.